Every lover admires his mistress, though she be very deformed of herself, ill-favoured, wrinkled, pimpled, pale, red, yellow, tanned, tallow-faced, have a swollen juggler's platter face, or a thin, lean, chitty face, have clouds in her face, be crooked, dry, bald, goggle-eyed, blear-eyed, or with staring eyes. She looks like a squizzed cat, hold her head still awry, heavy, dull, hollow-eyed, black or yellow about the eyes, or squint-eyed, sparrow-mouthed, Persian hook-nosed, have a sharp fox nose, a red nose, china flat great nose, nerissimo patoloqui, a nose like a promontory, gubber-tushed, rotten teeth, black uneven brown teeth, beetle-browed, a witch's beard, her breath stink all over the room, her nose drop winter and summer, with a Bavarian poke under her chin, a sharp chin, lay-veered, with a long crane's neck, which stands awry too, pendulous mammis, her dugs like two double jugs, or else no dugs in that other extreme, bloody fallen fingers, she have filthy, long, unpared nails, scabbed hands or wrists, a tanned skin, a rotten carcass, crooked back, she stoops, is lame, splay-footed, as slender in the middle as a cow in the waist, gouty legs, her ankles hang over her shoes, her feet stink, she breed lice, a mere changeling, a very monster, an oaf imperfect, her whole complexion savours, an harsh voice, incondite gesture, vile gait, a vast virago, or an ugly tit, a slug, a fat fustilugs, a truss, a long lean raw bone, a skeleton, a sneaker, si qual attent meliora puta, and to thy judgment looks like a mard in a lantern, whom thou couldst not fancy for a world, but hatest, loathest, and wouldst have spit in her face, or blow thy nose in her bosom, remedium amoris to another man. A dowdy, a slut, a scold, a nasty, rank, rammy, filthy, beastly queen, dishonest peradventure, obscene, base beggarly, rude, foolish, untaught, peevish, Aras daughter, Thersites sister, Grobian scholar. If he love her once, he admires her for all this. He takes no notice of any such errors or imperfections of body or mind. Ipsa hec delectant, velatae balbinam polypus agni. He had rather have her than any woman in the world. If he were a king, she alone should be his queen, his empress. Oh, that he had but the wealth and treasure of both the Indies to endow her with, a carrack of diamonds, a train of pearl, a carcanet of jewels, a pair of calfskin gloves of fourpence a pair were fitter, or some such toy to send her for a token. She should have it with all his heart. He would spend myriads of crowns for her sake. Venus herself, Panthea, Cleopatra, Tarquin's Tanaquil, Herod's Mariamne, or Mary of Burgundy, if she were alive, would not match her. Vincit Valtus hec Tinderidos, quae moverant horrida bella. Let Paris himself be judge. Renowned Helen comes short, that Rhodopean Phyllis, Larician Coronis, Babylonian Thisbe, Polyxena, Laura, Lesbia, etc. Your counterfeit ladies were never so fair as she is. Quicquiderit placidi, lepidi, grati atque faciti, vivida cunctorum retinis Pandora diorum. Dicebam trivi formam nihil esse Diani. Diana was not to be compared to her, nor Juno, nor Minerva, nor any goddess. Thetis' feet were as bright as silver, the ankles of Hebe clearer than crystal, the arms of Aurora as ruddy as the rose, Juno's breasts as white as snow. Minerva wise, Venus fair. But what of this? Dainty, come thou to me. She is all in all.
And now I will give you some rules how to catch the chub. And I am glad to enter you into the art of fishing by catching a chub, for there is no fish better to enter a young angler. He is so easily caught. But then it must be in this particular way. Go to the same hole in which I caught my chub, where in most hot days you will find a dozen or 20 chibans floating near the top of the water. Get 2 or 3 grasshoppers as you go over the meadow, and get secretly behind the tree, and stand as free from motion as possible. Then put a grasshopper on your hook, and let your hook hang 1/4 of a yard short of the water, to which end you must rest your rod on some bough of the tree. but it is likely the chubs will sink down towards the bottom of the water at the first shadow of your rod. For a chub is the fearfullest of fishes, and will do so if but a bird flies over him and makes the least shadow on the water. But they will presently rise up to the top again, and there lie soaring till some shadow affrights them again. I say, when they lie upon the top of the water, look out the best chub, which you, setting yourself in a fit place, may very easily see, and move your rod as softly as a snail moves to that chub you intend to catch. Let your bait fall gently upon the water 3 or 4 inches before him, and he will infallibly take the bait, and you will be as sure to catch him, for he is one of the leather-mouthed fishes, of which a hook doth scarce ever lose its hold, and therefore give him play enough before you offer to take him out of the water. Go your way presently, take my rod, and do as I bid you, and I will sit down and mend my tackling till you return back.
Truly, my loving master, you have offered me as fair as I could wish. I'll go and observe your directions. Look you, master, what I have done, that which joys my heart, caught just such another chub as yours was.
Marry, and I am glad of it. I am like to have a towardly scholar of you. I now see that with advice and practice you will make an angler in a short time. Have but a love to it, and I'll warrant you.
But, master, what if I could not have found a grasshopper?
Then I may tell you that a black snail, with his belly slit up to show his white, or a piece of soft cheese, will usually do as well. Nay, sometimes a worm, or any kind of fly, as the ant fly, the flesh fly, or wall fly, or the dor or beetle, which you may find under a cow turd, or a bob, which you will find in the same place, and in time will be a beetle. It is a short white worm, like to and bigger than a gentle, or a codworm or a caseworm. Any of these will do very well to fish in such a manner. And after this manner you may catch a trout in a hot evening, when, as you walk by a brook, and shall see or hear him leap at flies, then, if you get a grasshopper, put it on your hook, with your line about 2 yards long, standing behind a bush or tree where his hole is, and make your bait stir up and down on the top of the water. You may, if you stand close, be sure of a bite, but not sure to catch him, for he is not a leather-mouthed fish. And after this manner you may fish for him with almost any kind of live fly, but especially with a grasshopper.
It is a mighty change that is made by the death of every person, and it is visible to us who are alive. Reckon but from the spritefulness of youth, and the fair cheeks and full eyes of childhood, from the vigorousness and strong flexure of the joints of 25, to the hollowness and dead paleness, to the loathsomeness and horror of a 3 days' burial, and we shall perceive the distance to be very great and very strange. But so have I seen a rose, newly springing from the clefts of its hood, and at first it was fair as the morning, and full with the dew of heaven as a lamb's fleece. But when a ruder breath had forced open its virgin modesty, and dismantled its too youthful and unripe retirements, it began to put on darkness, and to decline to softness and the symptoms of a sickly age. It bowed the head and broke its stalk, and at night, having lost some of its leaves and all its beauty, it fell into the portion of weeds and outworn faces. The same is the portion of every man and every woman, the heritage of worms and serpents, rottenness and cold dishonor, and our beauty so changed that our acquaintance quickly knew us not, and that change mingled with so much horror, or else meets so with our fears and weak discoursings, that they who 6 hours ago tended upon us either with charitable or ambitious services, cannot without some regret stay in the room alone where the body lies stripped of its life and honour. I have read of a fair young German gentleman, who living often refused to be pictured, but put off the importunity of his friend's desire by giving way that after a few days' burial they might send a painter to his vault, and if they saw cause for it, draw the image of his death unto the life. They did so, and found his face half eaten, and his midriff and backbone full of serpents, and so he stands pictured among his armed ancestors. So does the fairest beauty change, and it will be as bad with you and me. And then what servants shall we have to wait upon us in the grave? What friends to visit us? What officious people to cleanse away the moist and unwholesome cloud reflected upon our faces from the sides of the weeping vaults, which are the longest weepers for our funeral? Death is a thing that everyone suffers, even persons of the lowest resolution, of the meanest virtue, of no breeding, of no discourse. Take away but the pomps of death, the disguises and solemn bugbears, the tinsel and the actings by candlelight, and proper and fantastic ceremonies, the minstrels and the noisemakers, the women and the weepers, the swoonings and the shriekings, the nurses and the physicians, the dark room and the ministers, the kindred and the watchers. And then to die is easy, ready, and quitted from its troublesome circumstances. It is the same harmless thing that a poor shepherd suffered yesterday, or a maid-servant today. And at the same time in which you die, in that very night 1,000 creatures die with you, some wise men and many fools. And the wisdom of the first will not quit him, and the folly of the latter does not make him unable to die.
But the iniquity of oblivion blindly scattereth her poppy, and deals with the memory of men without distinction to merit of perpetuity. Who can but pity the founder of the pyramids? Herostratus lives that burnt the temple of Diana, he is almost lost that built it. Time has spared the epitaph of Adrian's horse, confounded that of himself. In vain we compute our felicities by the advantage of our good names, since bad have equal durations, and Thersites is like to live as long as Agamemnon. Who knows whether the best of men be known, or whether there be not more remarkable persons forgot than any that stand remembered in the known account of time? Without the favour of the everlasting register, the first man had been as unknown as the last, and Methuselah's long life had been his only chronicle. Oblivion is not to be hired. The greater part must be content to be as though they had not been, to be found in the register of God, not in the record of man. 27 names make up the first story before the flood, and the recorded names ever since contain not one living century. The number of the dead long exceedeth all that shall live. The night of time far surpasseth the day, and who knows when was the equinox? Every hour adds unto that current arithmetic, which scarce stands one moment. And since death must be the Lucina of life, and even pagans could doubt whether thus to live were to die, since our longest sun sets at right dissensions, and makes but winter arches, and therefore it cannot be long before we lie down in darkness, and have our light in ashes, since the brother of death daily haunts us with dying mementos, and time that grows old in itself bids us hope no long duration. Diuturnity is a dream and folly of expectation. Pious spirits who passed their days in raptures of futurity made little more of this world than the world that was before it, while they lay obscure in the chaos of preordination and night of their forebeings. And if any have been so happy as truly to understand Christian annihilation, ecstasis, exolution, liquefaction, transformation, the kiss of the spouse, gustation of God, and ingression into the divine shadow, they have already had an handsome anticipation of heaven. The glory of the world is surely over, and the earth in ashes unto them. To subsist in lasting monuments, to live in their productions, to exist in their names and predicament of chimeras, was large satisfaction unto old expectations, and made one part of their Elysiums. But all this is nothing in the metaphysics of true belief. To live indeed is to be again ourselves, which being not only an hope, but an evidence in noble believers, it is all one to lie in St. Innocent's churchyard as in the sands of Egypt, ready to be anything in the ecstasy of being ever, and as content with 6 foot as the moles of Adrianus. Next, it is a lively and cheerful presage of our happy success and victory. For, as in a body, when the blood is fresh, the spirits pure and vigorous, not only to vital, but to rational faculties, and those in the acutest and the pertest operations of wit and subtlety, it argues in what good plight and constitution the body is. So, when the cheerfulness of the people is so sprightly up, as that it has not only wherewith to guard well its own freedom and safety, but to spare, and to bestow upon the solidest and sublimest points of controversy and new invention, it betokens us not degenerated, nor drooping to a fatal decay, but casting off the old and wrinkled skin of corruption to outlive these pangs, and wax young again, entering the glorious ways of truth and prosperous virtue, destined to become great and honourable in these latter ages. Methinks I see in my mind a noble and puissant nation rousing herself like a strong man after sleep, and shaking her invincible locks. Methinks I see her as an eagle, mewing her mighty youth, and kindling her undazzled eyes at the full midday beam, purging and unscaling her long abused sight at the fountain itself of heavenly radiance, while the whole noise of timorous and flocking birds, with those also that love the twilight, flutter about, amazed at what she means, and in their envious gabble would prognosticate a year of sects and schisms. What should ye do then? Should ye suppress all this flowery crop of knowledge and new light, sprung up and yet springing daily in this city? Should ye set an oligarchy of 20 engrossers over it, to bring a famine upon our minds again, when we shall know nothing but what is measured to us by their bushel? Believe it, Lords and Commons, they who counsel you to such a suppressing, do as good as bid ye suppress yourselves, and I will soon show how. If it be desired to know the immediate cause of all this free writing and free speaking, there cannot be assigned a truer than your own mild and free and humane government. It is the liberty, Lords and Commons, which your own valorous and happy counsels have purchased us, liberty which is the nurse of all great wits. This is that which hath rarefied and enlightened our spirits, like the influence of heaven. This is that which hath enfranchised, enlarged, and lifted up our apprehensions degrees above themselves. Ye cannot make us now less capable, less knowing, less eagerly pursuing of the truth, unless ye first make yourselves that made us so, less the lovers, less the founders of our true liberty. We can grow ignorant again, brutish, formal, and slavish as ye found us. But you then must first become that which ye cannot be, oppressive, arbitrary, and tyrannous, as they were from whom ye have freed us. That our hearts are now more capacious, our thoughts more erected to the search and expectation of greatest and exactest things, is the issue of your own virtue propagated in us. Ye cannot suppress that, unless ye reinforce an abrogated and merciless law, that fathers may dispatch at will their own children. And who shall then stick closest to ye, and excite others? Not he who takes up arms for coat and conduct, and his 4 nobles of Danegelt. Although I dispraise not the defence of just immunities, yet love my peace better, if that were all. Give me the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely according to conscience, above all liberties.
That he might not enjoy any ease or quiet during the short remainder of his life, their ministers came presently to insult over him with all the reproaches imaginable, pronounced his damnation, and assured him that the judgment he was the next day to suffer was but an easy prologue to that which he was to undergo afterwards. After many such barbarities, they offered to intercede for him to the kirk upon his repentance, and to pray with him. But he too well understood the form of their common prayer in those cases to be only the most virulent and insolent imprecations upon the persons of those they prayed against, and therefore he desired them to spare their pains, and to leave him to his own devotions. He told them that they were a miserable, deluded, and deluding people, and would shortly bring that poor nation under the most insupportable servitude ever people had submitted to. He told them he was prouder to have his head set upon the place it was appointed to be, than he could have been to have had his picture hang in the king's bedchamber, that he was so far from being troubled that his 4 limbs were to be hanged in 4 cities of the kingdom, that he heartily wished that he had flesh enough to be sent to every city in Christendom as a testimony of the cause for which he suffered. The next day they executed every part and circumstance of that barbarous sentence with the utmost inhumanity imaginable, and he bore it with all the courage and magnanimity and the greatest piety that a good Christian could manifest. He magnified the virtue, courage, and religion of the last king, exceedingly commended the justice and goodness and understanding of the present king, and prayed that they might not betray him as they had done his father. When he had ended all he meant to say and was expecting to expire, they had yet one scene more to act of their tyranny. The hangman brought the book that had been published of his truly heroic actions whilst he had commanded in that kingdom, which book was tied in a small cord that was put about his neck. The Marquis smiled at this new instance of their malice, and thanked them for it, and said he was pleased that it should be there, and was prouder of wearing it than ever he had been of the garter. And so, renewing some devout ejaculations, he patiently endured the last act of the executioner. Thus died the gallant Marquis of Montrose, after he had given as great a testimony of loyalty and courage as a subject can do, and performed as wonderful actions in several battles upon as great inequality of numbers and as great disadvantage in respect of arms and other preparations for war as have been performed in this age. He was a gentleman of a very ancient extraction, many of whose ancestors had exercised the highest charges under the king in that kingdom, and had been allied to the crown itself. He was of very good parts, which were improved by a good education. He had always a great emulation, or rather a great contempt, of the Marquis of Argyle, as he was too apt to contemn those he did not love, who wanted nothing but honesty and courage, to be a very extraordinary man, having all other good talents in a very great degree. Montrose was in his nature fearless of danger, and never declined any enterprise for the difficulty of going through with it, but exceedingly affected those which seemed desperate to other men, and did believe somewhat to be in himself above other men, which made him live more easily towards those who were, or were willing to be, inferior to him, towards whom he exercised wonderful civility and generosity, than with his superiors or equals. He was naturally jealous, and suspected those who did not concur with him in the way not to mean so well as he. He was not without vanity, but his virtues were much superior, and he well deserved to have his memory preserved and celebrated amongst the most illustrious persons of the age in which he lived.
When they had passed by this place, they came upon the borders of the shadow of death, and this valley was longer than the other, a place also most strangely haunted with evil things, as many are able to testify. But these women and children went the better through it, because they had daylight, and because Mr. Greatheart was their conductor. When they were entered upon this valley, they thought that they heard a groaning as of dead men, a very great groaning. They thought also they did hear words of lamentation, spoken as of some in extreme torment. These things made the boys to quake. The women also looked pale and wan, but their guide bid them be of good comfort. So they went on a little further, and they thought that they felt the ground begin to shake under them, as if some hollow place was there. They heard also a kind of hissing as of serpents, but nothing as yet appeared. Then said the boys, "Are we not yet at the end of this doleful place?" But the guide also bid them be of good courage, and look well to their feet, lest haply, said he, you be ta'en in some snare. Now James began to be sick, but I think the cause thereof was fear. So his mother gave him some of that glass of cordial that she had given her at the interpreter's house, and 3 of the pills that Mr. Skill had prepared, and the boy began to revive. Thus they went on, till they came to about the middle of the valley, and then Christiana said, "Methinks I see something yonder upon the road before us, a thing of a shape such as I have not seen." Then said Joseph, "Mother, what is it?" "An ugly thing, child, an ugly thing," said she. "But, mother, what is it like?" said he. "'Tis like I cannot tell what," said she. And now it was but a little way off. Then said she, "It is nigh." "Well, well," said Mr. Greatheart, "let them that are most afraid keep close to me." So the fiend came on, and the conductor met it. But when it was just come to him, it vanished to all their sights. Then remembered they what had been said some time ago, "Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." They went therefore on, as being a little refreshed. But they had not gone far before Mercy, looking behind her, saw, as she thought, something most like a lion, and it came a great padding pace after, and it had a hollow voice of roaring, and at every roar it gave, it made all the valley echo, and all their hearts to ache, save the heart of him that was their guide. So it came up, and Mr. Greatheart went behind, and put the pilgrims all before him. The lion also came on apace, and Mr. Greatheart addressed himself to give him battle. But when he saw that it was determined that resistance should be made, he also drew back and came no further. Then they went on again, and their conductor did go before them, till they came at a place where was cast up a pit the whole breadth of the way. And before they could be prepared to go over that, a great mist and a darkness fell upon them, so that they could not see. Then said the pilgrims, "Alas, now what shall we do?" But their guide made answer, "Fear not, stand still, and see what an end will be put to this also." So they stayed there, because their path was marred. They then also thought that they did hear more apparently, the noise and rushing of the enemies. The fire also and the smoke of the pit were much easier to be discerned. Then said Christiana to Mercy, Now I see what my poor husband went through. I have heard much of this place, but I never was here afore now. Poor man, he went here all alone in the night. He had night also quite through the way. Also these fiends were busy about him, as if they would have torn him in pieces. Many have spoke of it, but none can tell what the valley of the shadow of death should mean till they come to it themselves. The heart knows its own bitterness, and a stranger intermeddleth not with its joy. To be here is a fearful thing.
Will you see the infancy of this sublime and celestial greatness? Those pure and virgin apprehensions I had from the womb, and that divine light wherewith I was born, are the best unto this day wherein I can see the universe. By the gift of God they attended me into the world, and by his special favour I remember them till now. Verily they seem the greatest gifts his wisdom could bestow, for without them all other gifts had been dead and vain. They are unattainable by book, and therefore I will teach them by experience. Pray for them earnestly, for they will make you angelical and wholly celestial. Certainly Adam in paradise had not more sweet and curious apprehensions of the world than I when I was a child. All appeared new and strange at first, inexpressibly rare and delightful and beautiful. I was a little stranger which at my entrance into the world was saluted and surrounded with innumerable joys. My knowledge was divine. I knew by intuition those things which since my apostasy I collected again by the highest reason. My very ignorance was advantageous. I seemed as one brought into the estate of innocence. All things were spotless and pure and glorious, yea, and infinitely mine and joyful and precious. I knew not that there were any sins or complaints or laws. I dreamed not of poverties, contentions, or vices. All tears and quarrels were hidden from mine eyes. Everything was at rest, free and immortal. I knew nothing of sickness or death or rents or exaction either for tribute or bread. In the absence of these I was entertained like an angel with the works of God in their splendor and glory. I saw all in the peace of Eden. Heaven and earth did sing my Creator's praises, and could not make more melody to Adam than to me. All time was eternity and a perpetual Sabbath. Is it not strange that an infant should be heir of the whole world, and see those mysteries which the books of the learned never unfold? The corn was orient and immortal wheat, which never should be reaped, nor was ever sown. I thought it had stood from everlasting to everlasting. The dust and stones of the street were as precious as gold. The gates were at first the end of the world. The green trees, when I saw them first through one of the gates, transported and ravished me. Their sweetness and unusual beauty made my heart to leap, and almost mad with ecstasy. They were such strange and wonderful things. The men, oh, what venerable and reverend creatures did the aged seem, immortal cherubims, and young men, glittering and sparkling angels, and maids, strange seraphic pieces of life and beauty. Boys and girls tumbling in the street and playing were moving jewels. I knew not that they were born or should die, but all things abided eternally as they were in their proper places. Eternity was manifest in the light of the day, and something infinite behind everything appeared, which talked with my expectation and moved my desire. The city seemed to stand in Eden or to be built in heaven. The streets were mine, the temple was mine, the people were mine, their clothes and gold and silver were mine, as much as their sparkling eyes, fair skins, and ruddy faces. The skies were mine, and so were the sun and moon and stars, and all the world was mine, and I the only spectator and enjoyer of it. I knew no churlish proprieties, nor bounds, nor divisions, but all proprieties and divisions were mine, all treasures and the possessors of them. So that with much ado I was corrupted, and made to learn the dirty devices of this world, which now I unlearn, and become, as it were, a little child again, that I may enter into the kingdom of God.
1669, 30th of April. Up and by coach to the coachmaker's, and there I do find a great many ladies sitting in the body of a coach that must be ended by tomorrow. They were my Lady Marquess of Winchester, Bellasis, and other great ladies, eating a bread and butter and drinking ale. I to my coach, which is silvered over, but no varnish yet laid on, so I put it in a way of doing, and myself about other business, and particularly to see Sir W. Coventry, with whom I talked a good while to my great content, and so to other places, among others to my tailor's, and then to the belt maker's, where my belt cost me 55 shillings of the colour of my new suit. And here, understanding that the mistress of the house, an oldish woman in a hat, hath some water good for the eyes, she did dress me, making my eyes smart most horribly, and did give me a little glass of it, which I will use, and hope it will do me good. So to the cutler's, and there did give Tom, who was with me all day, a sword cost me 12 shillings, and a belt of my own, and sent my own silver-hilt sword a gilding against tomorrow. This morning I did visit Mr. Oldenborough, and did see the instrument for perspective made by Dr. Wren, of which I have one making by Brown, and the sight of this do please me mightily. At noon my wife came to me at my tailor's, and I sent her home, and myself and Tom dined at Hercules Pillars, and so about our business again, and particularly to Lily's, the varnisher, about my prints, whereof some of them are pasted upon the boards, and to my full content. Thence to my frame makers, one Norris in Longacre, who showed me several forms of frames, which were pretty, in little bits of mouldings to choose patterns by. This done, I to my coachmaker's, and there vexed to see nothing yet done to my coach at 3 in the afternoon. But I set it in doing, and stood by till 8 at night, and saw the painter varnish it, which is pretty to see how every doing it over do make it more and more yellow, and it dries as fast in the sun as it can be laid on almost. And most coaches are nowadays done so, and it is very pretty when laid on well, and not too pale as some are, even to show the silver. Here I did make the workmen drink, and saw my coach cleaned and oiled, and staying among poor people there in the alley, did hear them call their fat child Punch, which pleased me mightily, that word being become a word of common use for all that is thick and short. May 1st, up betimes. My wife extraordinarily fine with her flowered tabby gown that she made 2 years ago, now laced exceeding pretty, and indeed was fine all over, and mighty earnest to go, though the day was very lowering, and she would have me put on my fine suit, which I did. And so anon we went alone through the town with our new liveries of serge, and the horses' manes and tails tied with red ribbons, and the standards thus gilt with varnish, and all clean, and green reins, that people did mightily look upon us. And the truth is, I did not see any coach more pretty, though more gay, than ours all the day. The day being unpleasing, though the park full of coaches, but dusty and windy and cold, and now and then a little dribbling of rain. And what made it worse, there were so many hackney coaches as spoiled the sight of the gentlemen's, and so we had little pleasure.
Sir John Denham was unpolished with the smallpox, otherwise a fine complexion. He was of the tallest, but a little incurvetting at his shoulders, not very robust. His hair was but thin and flaxen, with a moist curl. His gait was slow, and was rather a stalking. He had long legs. His eye was a kind of light goose grey, not big, but it had a strange piercingness, not as to shining and glory, but like a Momus, when he conversed with you, he looked into your very thoughts. He was admitted of Trinity College in Oxford. I have heard Mr. Josias Howe say that he was the dreamingest young fellow. He never expected such things from him as he has left the world. When he was there, he would game extremely. When he had played away all his money, he would play away his father's wrought rich gold caps. He was as good a student as any in the house, was not suspected to be a wit. He was much rooked by gamesters, and fell acquainted with that unsanctified crew to his ruin. His father had some suspicion of it, and chid him severely, whereupon his son John, only child, wrote a little essay against gaming and to show the vanities and inconveniences of it, which he presented to his father to let him know his detestation of it. But shortly after his father's death, who left 2,000 or 1,500 pounds in ready money, 2 houses well furnished and much plate, the money was played away first, and next the plate was sold. I remember about 1646 he lost £200 one night at New Cut. He was generally temperate as to drinking, but one time when he was a student of Lincoln's Inn, having been merry at the tavern with his comrades late at night, a frolic came into his head to get a plasterer's brush and a pot of ink and blot out all the signs between Temple Bar and Charing Cross, which made a strange confusion the next day, and 'twas in term time. But it happened that they were discovered, and it cost him and them some moneys. This I had from our Escott Esquire, that carried the ink pot. At last, viz. 1640, his play of the Sophie came out, which did take extremely. Mr. Edmund Waller said then of him that he broke out like the Irish rebellion 70,000 strong before anybody was aware. At the beginning of the Civil War he was made governor of Farnham Castle for the king, but he was but a young soldier and did not keep it. In 1643, after Edgehill fight, his poem called Cooper's Hill was printed at Oxford in a sort of brown paper, for then they could get no better. In 1647 he conveyed, or stole away, the 2 Dukes of York and Gloucester from St. James's, from the tuition of the Earl of Northumberland, and conveyed them into France to the Prince of Wales and Queen Mother. Anno 1652 he returned into England, and being in some straits was kindly entertained by the Earl of Pembroke at Wilton, where I had the honour to contract an acquaintance with him. He was, as I remember, a year with my Lord of Pembroke at Wilton and London. He had then sold all the lands his father had left him. In the time of the Civil Wars, George Withers, the poet, begged Sir John Denham's estate at Egham of the Parliament, in whose cause he was a captain of horse. It happened that G.W. was taken prisoner and was in danger of his life, having written severely against the king, etc. Sir John Denham went to the king and desired his majesty not to hang him, for that whilst G.W. lived, he should not be the worst poet in England.
To begin then with Shakespeare. He was the man who of all modern and perhaps ancient poets had the largest and most comprehensive soul. All the images of nature were still present to him, and he drew them not laboriously, but luckily. When he describes anything, you more than see it, you feel it too. Those who accuse him to have wanted learning give him the greater commendation. He was naturally learned. He needed not the spectacles of books to read nature. He looked inwards and found her there. I cannot say he is everywhere alike. Were he so, I should do him injury to compare him with the greatest of mankind. He is many times flat, insipid, his comic wit degenerating into clenches, his serious swelling into bombast. But he is always great when some great occasion is presented to him. No man can say he ever had a fit subject for his wit, and did not then raise himself as high above the rest of poets, quantum lentus alent, inter viberna cupressi. The consideration of this made Mr. Hales of Eton say that there was no subject of which any poet ever writ, but he would produce it much better done in Shakespeare. And however others are now generally preferred before him, yet the age wherein he lived, which had contemporaries with him, Fletcher and Johnson, never equalled them to him in their esteem. And in the last King's Court, when Ben's reputation was at highest, Sir John Suckling, and with him the greater part of the courtiers, set our Shakespeare far above him. Beaumont and Fletcher, of whom I am next to speak, had, with the advantage of Shakespeare's wit, which was their precedent, great natural gifts improved by study. Beaumont especially being so accurate a judge of plays that Ben Jonson, while he lived, submitted all his writings to his censure, and his thought used his judgment in correcting, if not contriving, all his plots. What value he had for him appears by the verses he writ him, and therefore I need speak no farther of it. The first play that brought Fletcher and him in esteem was their Philaster, for before that they had written 2 or 3 very unsuccessfully, as the like is reported of Ben Jonson before he writ Every Man in His Humour. Their plots were generally more regular than Shakespeare's, especially those which were made before Beaumont's death, and they understood and imitated the conversation of gentlemen much better, whose wild debaucheries and quickness of wit in repartees no poet before them could paint as they have done. Humour, which Ben Jonson derived from particular persons, they made it not their business to describe. They represented all the passions very lively, but above all, love. I am apt to believe the English language in them arrived to its highest perfection. What words have since been taken in are rather superfluous than ornamental. Their plays are now the most pleasant and frequent entertainments of the stage, 2 of theirs being acted through the year for one of Shakespeare's or Jonson's. The reason is because there is a certain gaiety in their comedies and pathos in their more serious plays, which suits generally with all men's humours.
The plan of Paradise Lost has this inconvenience, that it comprises neither human actions nor human manners. The man and woman who act and suffer are in a state which no other man or woman can ever know. The reader finds no transaction in which he can be engaged, beholds no condition in which he can by any effort of imagination place himself. He has therefore little natural curiosity or sympathy. We all indeed feel the effect of Adam's disobedience. We all sin like Adam, and like him must bewail our offences. We have restless and insidious enemies in the fallen angels, and in the blessed spirits we have guardians and friends. In the redemption of mankind we hope to be included, and in the description of heaven and hell we are surely interested, as we are all to reside hereafter, either in regions of horror or of bliss. But these truths are too important to be new. They have been taught to our infancy. They have mingled with our solitary thoughts and familiar conversations, and are habitually interwoven with the whole texture of life. Being therefore not new, they raise no unaccustomed emotion in the mind. What we knew before, we cannot learn. What is not unexpected cannot surprise. Of the ideas suggested by these awful scenes, from some we recede with reverence, except when stated hours require their association, and from others we shrink with horror, or admit them only as salutary inflictions, as counterpoises to our interests and passions. Such images rather obstruct the career of fancy than incite it. Pleasure and terror are indeed the genuine sources of poetry, but poetical pleasure must be such as human imagination can at least conceive, and poetical terror such as human strength and fortitude may combat. The good and evil of eternity are too ponderous for the wings of wit. The mind sinks under them in passive helplessness, content with calm belief and humble adoration. Known truths, however, may take a different appearance and be conveyed to the mind by a new train of intermediate images. This Milton has undertaken and performed with pregnancy and vigour of mind peculiar to himself. Whoever considers the few radical positions which the Scriptures afforded him will wonder by what energetic operation he expanded them to such extent, and ramified them to so much variety, restrained as he was by religious reverence from licentiousness of fiction. Here is a full display of the united force of study and genius, of a great accumulation of materials, with judgment to digest and fancy to combine them. Milton was able to select from nature or from story, from ancient fable or from modern science, whatever could illustrate and adorn his thoughts. An accumulation of knowledge impregnated his mind, fermented by study and exalted by imagination. It has been therefore said, without an indecent hyperbole, by one of his encomiasts, that in reading Paradise Lost we read a book of universal knowledge. But original deficiencies cannot be supplied. The want of human interest is always felt. Paradise Lost is one of the books which the reader admires and lays down, and forgets to take up again. None ever wished it longer than it is. Its perusal is a duty rather than a pleasure. We read Milton for instruction, retire harassed and overburdened, and look elsewhere for recreation. We desert our master and seek for companions.